So, what is meant by tilling and keeping the Garden of Eden? Adam was more than just a gardener. He wasn't there to pull weeds and to make trenches around the cherry blossoms. Okay? There was more implied here. Again, if we were reading this in Hebrew, we would read the same words that God commanded the Hebrew priests to do in the tabernacle. So take a look at that in Numbers chapter 3, book of Numbers. Keep your finger in Genesis, go about a little ways in to the book of Numbers, chapter 3, verse 7. Chapter 3, verses 7 and 8.
What page?
Page 98. Okay. So start at verse 5. And the Lord, notice that the word Lord is in all capitals. What does that mean? Yahweh. This is the name of God. Okay. So this is a big deal. All right. God is using his name, and he says, and Yahweh said to Moses. That's another way of saying that. The Lord said to Moses. Whenever you read the Old Testament, and you see the word Lord all in capital letters, you know that's the sacred name of God being translated. Okay? Well, that's a big, that should be a big red flag to you. It's like, uh-oh, God is he's speaking his name about something. Okay? Same that he did in Genesis chapter 2. The Lord God said to Adam. Okay? He's using his personal name. So the Lord said to Moses, bring the tribe of Levi near and set them before Aaron the priest, that they may minister to him. Verse 7. They shall perform duties for him and for the whole congregation before the tent of meeting as they minister at the tabernacle. They shall have charge over the furnishings of the meeting and attend to the duties of the sons of Israel as they minister in the tabernacle. The word translated to attend and charge is the same word as to till and keep as in Genesis chapter 2. Okay? Same Hebrew words. Well, then why aren't they translated that way, Chip? Well, because if I were to say, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to guard and protect it, you would say guard and protect it from what? There's no one in the garden. From the animals? What is he, a lion tamer now?
From the order.
You see? And so what your commentary is alluding to is that there is something that needs to be protected in the Garden of Eden, and God gave command to Adam, keep watch, guard, and protect this sacred ground. From what? From what's going to happen in chapter 3. What's going to happen in chapter 3? Snake comes in and tries to mess things up. Get it? So there's more here to this story than meets the eye. And it's a fault, if you will, of our translations that give us this impression that Adam was simply just a gardener and God gave him the duties to guard and till the ground. Well, it didn't need farming. Let's think about this. Did the Garden of Eden have weeds to be plucked up at this point? No. Did the trees really need maybe pruning or anything? Probably not. This is the perfect state of man. So everything is kind of like taking care of itself, so to speak. So what is God actually commanding him to do? It makes sense if we translated guard and protect. because when we get to chapter 3, we realize there's an outside influence that's trying to come in and mess things up. So he was to guard and protect it. This is where I'm going ahead myself, but we all know where this story is going. This is where Adam is at fault. He did not heed his duty. He did not guard and protect the sacred space that God had given him. Why? Because he stood by and did nothing while his wife was being seduced by the temptings of the devil. What should Adam have done? When he heard this dialogue, what he should have done is intervened and said, come away, honey. We don't need to be listening to this. God already told us not to touch this. The snake is trying to deceive us. Maybe this is what God was meaning when he said protect and guard. This is trying to get us to do wrong, or trying to get us to do what God commanded not to. So come away, come on. Let's go pick some nectarines, huh? I'm hungry. Go get me something to eat, woman. Right? Stop talking to snakes, give me something to eat. That's what he should have done. Right? What did he do? Nothing. He just stood there listening, and when Eve took the fruit and ate it, it says she gave it to her husband and he ate it too. So he was complicit in the whole fall by omission. We could easily say that Eve committed a sin of commission. She willingly took the fruit and ate it. But Adam committed a sin of omission by not stopping the sin from happening. So the fall from the Garden of Eden is a beautiful example, if you can call it that, of what a sin of commission and a sin of omission is. You now know the difference. Commission is where you go into the store and you steal the candy and run out. That's a sin of commission. You are an active agent in committing a sin. Got it? You actively tell someone, no, I'm only 29, when you're actually my age. Okay, that's a lie, right? That's a sin of, you're actively involved in that sin. A sin of a sin of omission is when you see the Gestapo come in and take people away to the concentration camps and you do nothing. You do nothing. You don't stop them, and you are not actively sending people to concentration camps, but you're also not doing anything to prevent it or to help them. You see that? There's you're not actively doing anything, but you're also not doing anything to stop it either. When you see an injustice or a crime, you see someone getting mugged, and you just go this way. I'm not getting involved. Okay? That's a sin of omission. You should be concerned about your brother's safety. Someone is being hurt, you need to intervene. Okay? It's a sin of omission when you don't do something that you know you to do, and you don't do it.
But following his omission, there was omission. Because he also read the apple.
Oh yes. There was an active part in that. But his omission, I would say, is not preventing it in the first place.
Yes.
Because it's clear from the story that we're given, he had a duty to guard and protect, and he did not. Everyone good? Everyone seeing what I'm talking about? Yes. See, when we talk about the origins of sin and where we are and how we got here, it begins here. And when we analyze the story a little bit deeper, if we go a little bit deeper, and we look at the words in their original language, we get a much deeper picture than what we're traditionally seeing. Okay? Everyone good? All right. Now, we talked about Eden as the first temple. Remember when you go to verse 12. Well, start at verse 10. A river flowed out of Eden to water the garden where it divided became 4 rivers. Verse 12. And the gold of that land is good, bdellium and onyx stone are there. So Eden was on this ground of gold and precious jewels. And we already mentioned 2 weeks ago how when you look at the New Jerusalem in the book of Revelation, what are the streets made of?
Gold.
Gold. So it's like Adam and Eve walked on, if you will, streets of gold. When you look at the New Jerusalem in Revelation, the New Jerusalem is paved with gold. It's the same thing, same idea. Okay? So if you look in your commentary on page 20, it talks about this. Yes. Go to chapter, it's on this paragraph down here where it says chapter 2, verses 4 through 25. The second creation account describes the formation of the first human couple. The story is historical in content but symbolic in description. We've already been here on that, right? Everyone understand that? Okay? And also, these are good verses to read from the Catechism of the Catholic Church to further that idea. So there was a real event in history that occurred where God made humans, okay, separate from the beasts, but not necessarily in the way that's described here. This is a poetic account of what actually happened. Okay? Its message being conveyed through images once familiar in the epic mytho-poetic literature of the ancient Near East. The setting, the Garden of Eden, which represents the state of grace. Man, who is created outside the garden, is placed there by God. So man was created outside, God puts him in the Garden of Eden. Okay? To show that he is raised to a level of divine blessedness that is above his natural state. I think that's a very good thing to think about. Okay? God took him from the dust of the ground and then placed him in this place of honor. Okay? The sacredness of this original situation is underscored by the indications that Genesis imagines paradise as a primeval sanctuary. Like the tabernacle and the temple of later times, the garden is one, entered from the east. They got into the Garden of Eden through the east. All of our churches originally were built ad orientem, which is Latin for towards the east. The original tabernacle that Moses built, you entered in through the east. Okay? John Steinbeck would later write a novel called East of Eden. Okay? Now that's very interesting that you come in through the east to get into the Garden of Eden. And then the tabernacle, the temple was faced ad orientem, and all of our churches originally were built ad orientem. Why? Because that's how God originally built the tabernacle and the temple under Moses, and how the Garden of Eden was. You see this? You following me?
Yes.
Okay. 2, home to angelic guardians called cherubim. After the fall, remember God sends the cherubim to block them from going in there? Okay. So there were cherubim in Eden, these angels. Where else do we see cherubim? The Ark of the Covenant, which is the center of worship in the tabernacle and the temple. You see how already we're connecting all of these dots throughout the Bible history? It's like, well, why did God command this box to be built out of gold? And why cherubim? Why these angels? It's to remind them of where they came from. That all of creation was built in this manner. Keep going. Number 3, adorned with trees. The verses there, particularly in 1 Kings that you see, 1 Kings 6, that's a description of the temple that was built by Solomon. And when he describes it, and we'll get to this as we go through the Bible history, On the outside of the temple were ornate carvings of trees, particularly pomegranates, that were carved on the outside of the temple. You're like, well, why? It's to remind them of the Garden of Eden. The whole temple that Solomon built was a replica based out of the tabernacle that Moses gave them, that itself comes from the Garden of Eden, complete with angels inside and figures of trees, and particularly fruit trees. 4, the source of sacred water. Outside of the tabernacle, there was the basin on the back of bulls. Here's a little interesting side note. In the temple, in the Mormon temple, their baptistry is on the back of bulls. 12 bulls, to be exact. I said, really? And I go, I wonder if anyone knows of the significance, because that's how the bronze laver was in the temple. And it was on the outside. To remind you of the rivers that flowed out of Eden. Okay? 5, the place where God dwells with his people on the earth. Remember the cloud that would hover over where the Ark of the Covenant was in the tabernacle?
Yes.
Okay? In the same way, God dwells with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, right? He walked with them, talked with them. Yes? So you see, what was Moses building? He was getting them back into the garden. And then Solomon did the same thing with the temple. And now, what do we have? Churches. And they're built out of this pattern. They face towards the east. We have holy water before you come in. You see, we're in the sanctuary lights, the candelabra, like it was in the tabernacle. We have the Holy of Holies in the form of Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament in what we call the tabernacle.